1968. I currently work at the Riverbank campus, located at 6101 Oakdale Road. And we have a wind, several. First of all, we've been out of town for about 12 days, and I just want to say a big shout out to all of our team, which most of them are volunteers. They led so well the last couple weeks. We were able to join services every Sunday online and just see our team excel and just operate in their giftings. And some of them operate and get stretched in their giftings. So I just want to say a huge shout out to all the team at Riverbank for that. As well as personally, we just had a great time. It was really hard to come back here from Hawaii. So we're still not sure we want to be back here. It's like going from paradise to hell with the heat here. The heat here and other things, but the heat mainly. But we're glad to be back and grateful for our team.
God has blessed the Trobs through different property sales to purchase a condo in Hawaii. Some of you know that. And I got the FaceTime tour this last week when I bugged Tracy about something, and he said, hey, you want a tour? And it was really cool. And I just got off the phone call, and I was just so excited for you guys that that's been a dream for so long and that the Lord has made it possible. And I know your vision is to have a place to stay when you go there, but also for other people in your life or in ministry that you want to bless with that. So anyway, it's just pretty awesome that you have that opportunity. We're celebrate with you.
My name is Dave Leatherman. Last four of my social, 5875, blood type B positive, and also lead pastor / janitor of the Ripon campus. And I just wanted to give a shout out to all of our kids, directors, and all the people that are off to camp. Man, it was such a fun energy as they all left the Riverbank. We all met up at you guys' campus over there, and it was just such a fun energy. You could see all the the kids team people. They were all excited and kind of busy bees and all that sort of stuff. And I just am so hope-filled and been in prayer. Our campus has been in prayer that God is just going to do something significant, world-changing over this camp, and I'm excited for that. Another thing that I was excited about, we were out of town for, which I didn't even know was happening, though I probably did, I just don't remember, is there was a called camp that some of our people from one church went to, some of our students from one church. I know 3 students from Ripon went, and then there was more, but what an incredible thing, and it just excites me that we're able to get serious and take steps for people, for students that feel called into ministry, and I just think that's a tremendous, how do we water that seed, and let's keep figuring out ways to do that, and then also this Sunday, Rochelle preached. She did an amazing job. She talked about the condition of your heart. And, being happy for people rather than being jealous. And so I just want to publicly say to Tracy and Shelley, I am not jealous of your Hawaii situation. I am happy for you guys. God bless you. We wish you well.
While that microphone finds the next win, I'll say one of the things that Kyle and I love that we get to still do is pour into the next generation of leaders. And so speaking of Called Camp, our school leadership went to Called Camp, our interns, and then at the end we met them in Angels Camp for just an overnight to kind of finish and wrap that time up. Hey, this is our leadership team. And it was just a great time.
The better thing to say is after 12 days on a road trip, driving to Texas, after one night break, we showed up at Angels Camp.
And drove to Angels Camp.
And that was
That's
insanity.
True. That was not fun, the drive. But Pastor Brooks is doing a great job with our school leadership. And it's awesome being able to work alongside of her and just really, really excited for this year's school leadership. So we got to do that. And then we came home. And then the next day we hosted a student leadership overnight.
Again, insanity at our house.
Because why not? If you're gonna be gone and you're not gonna get work done, you might as well like really go all in. So I was super excited for Manteca campus. They had a student be called into the ministry at youth camp, and she came. So they're just launching like how do we develop students, and so I love that we got to do that together. Pastor Marlo did a ton of work to get this overnight together, and it just. All I can say is it's exciting to see what God is doing in the next generation. So, I feel like the longer I'm here, the older I get, obviously, and I just, we continually have to be focused on developing the next generation. So, Kyle and I will obviously focus on vision things and whatever, but I just think it's probably likely that you'll never see us step out of developing the next generation of leaders. And so, we'll be with junior high kids, which, by the way, our junior high kids are nuts. And Jackson's going to be a junior high kid. He was kind of hanging out, and I was like,
A year from now.
a year from now. We
There's
still have
still
another
grace.
year. But I
There's
was
still
like,
grace for everyone.
he's not ever going to be ready for youth group. Forever, he's going to have to just be in the preschool downstairs because that kid is not emotionally prepared for that season. So, anyways.
Nor is anyone else.
No, none of us are. So that's my one win is that all that leadership stuff, and then just personally, Jackson won his first kids camp this week, and
Which is strange because we're talking about him being in junior high. But the problem is we had COVID.
yes,
Well,
and then we were on our sabbatical last year, so he didn't get to go. So the 2 years he could have gone, he didn't go. But bless our leaders who were there. Domingo's his cabin leader, and I was like, oh,
We've already gotten videos.
we have. But I was like, you just parent that kid. He smiled. He's like, I love him, and I will. I said, okay, good. But I love that. I love that we can send our kids to camp. I can't wait to hear the stories of them coming back.
Brooke Schlegel, One Church Modesto, married to Jordan Schlegel. That's my title. I'm just kidding. This week was awesome. Intern retreat, OCSL retreat, the One Church School of Leadership, hearing about Called Camp, which this is the first year that our district did Called Camp, and just the success of it makes me excited. But tagging onto that on Sunday and continuing in conversations and phone calls yesterday with people, there are young people, young moms getting called to ministry on Sunday morning at our altars, which is so cool. Like a conversation I had yesterday of me and my husband went home and figured it out, and I can serve this many hours, and I think I'm going to resign from this thing to do these things at the church and just plug in any way I can. And people experiencing God in such a way that they're like, how can I do more? I want to be a part, and so that more people come to know him. So I'm just in awe of, yes, obviously when students get a call to ministry, phenomenal. When a single mom of a 6-year-old gets called to ministry, I'm like, what is happening? I love you, Lord, that she's just like, okay, let's make it work. We'll take these steps. And so, yeah, I'm honored to be a part of it. It's awesome.
Marlo, back here at the sound booth from Modesto campus. I want to talk about two things. So, student overnight for our student leaders was so good. They did great competitions. So, Pastors Kyle and Marcia pulled out their old youth pastor hat. And when I mean major competitions, diving for a massive locked box at the bottom of a pool, and may or may not have had their daughter get kicked in the face, totally fine. But all of our kids really love competitions because it bonds them in such a unique way. And then the student, the pour in the discipleship, the leadership principles and lessons that they gave, which is awesome. And our students just got to really connect. So the guys got to spend the night at the Bethke's, and the girls came to my house, and all the girls just crashed into my massive couch, and it was 11 girls just snuggled up, and I said goodnight, and I went upstairs and slipped in my bed. But it was just so good, and our kids I think our kids really needed it. Our student leaders needed just a little extra from the summer. And then on Wednesday, we did worship in the round at the ranch, which is the Rogers Ranch we had kids camp at last year. And it was an acoustic set. We had 3 of our teenagers play instruments and sing. And our students just really pressed in from the very beginning. Kids around the campfire, nothing special, no lights, on their knees, just fully worshiping. And then Seth gave a great mini message on like why we worship, and when we see God correctly, we fully worship. And it was just so good, and I'm really excited for what God's gonna do in this generation. And then I'm gonna preemptively win the Youth Revival Night on August 7th. So this is my clue into all of you. Come to Youth Revival Night. All of our teenagers are gonna come here. Becky Johnson from Jesus Culture is coming to speak. And I'm excited. So you want to be here. You're invited if you're a part of the One Church team to pray over students. All right, love you all.
The ranch, also known as the Schlegel's house.
Was that August 7th?
August 7th. It's on the calendar also, but is it 5 p.m.? Perfect.
My name's Kim from Ripon campus, and just great day on Sunday. And I was just going to share a win from, so pre-service prayer I thought was just an incredible time with the Lord for all those who were there. We kind of had some impromptu testimonies. People just came up and shared. We had some great wins of just healing and things that God, supernatural healing that God has been doing in people's lives. And they came up and shared. And then fast forward service, before the sermon, had a great time of worship, and I just felt like, it led right into those same people coming up to share impromptu testimonies. I just felt like there was just such an incredible spirit of encouragement, like God is healing, He's moving, and to have people share wins that God is moving and healing, it was incredible. So I just wanted to give God praise for that, and just for all the testimonies. It's been great. Also, I thought it was so cool. There was a family that was at our church on Sunday because a preschool-aged kid invited a little girl from her preschool, and the mom said, so we came. And they were there in church that day, so I loved it. Well done, our kids.
I am thankful for not just our kids directors, but all the extended staff and lead team that are at kids camp right now. I love that we're a church that we cross department lines well, that we support one another, we show up for each other's big stuff. We're all busy, and so there is a value that we can divide and conquer and accomplish something for the Lord. That's a very healthy trend of a church, that not everybody is needed for every big event, but then you don't want to lose the fact that we all lean in and contribute when we should too. So I love that we live in that tension. So anything else before we pray? Oh.
Okay, I'm Janelle from Ripon campus. And we have a volunteer at our campus. Her name is Kelly. She's also one of my best friends. But she was a greeter my first time coming, and I've told her a million times she is the reason I came back. She is a phenomenal greeter, and she took a break from volunteering for a couple months, probably like 4 or 5 months, and she joined the worship team recently, but she was a greeter again for the first time on Sunday after her break, and it was just so sweet to see her out there greeting again, knowing how she's just such a great greeter, and it just made me so happy.
I have one really quick if that's okay.
Sorry, we're all from Ripon.
Absolutely. And then Pastor Anthony, and we'll let that be the last one.
Hi, I'm Mariah from Ripon campus. A few weeks back, we launched Worship Boot Camp, and we've had probably close to 12 students. I haven't counted, but around 12 students coming. And on Sunday, I was in the lobby helping the keys players, and I heard someone drumming, and I thought that it was my drummer, for the worship team. I thought it was Nate. And I walk in there, and it's our student, and he sounded so good. And if anyone knows the journey with poor Nate, he is our only drummer and has been our only drummer for a year and a half since I took over. And so he's excited because he almost has another drummer playing. But it's just awesome how well we have Nate, who's our drummer, and then we have Brad, who's our acoustic/bass player, depending on what I schedule him for. And they've just been coming after church and teaching the students for an hour, and they've been pouring into them. So shout out to them. They're our MVP volunteers for the worship team. And then the students have just been diving deep, and they're getting it. So the first hour is just teaching them instruments and music, and then the second hour, my husband prepares a small devotion, and we just had great conversations with these kids about what it means to be called into something, what worship even is. And so I'm just super excited for the relationships we're getting to have with the students, but then also the bond that's growing between them to become a worship team together and stuff. So it's just been pretty great to watch.
Awesome. Well, we had a special guest speaker at the Manteca campus this last Sunday. Her name was Marcia Bethke, and she did an incredible job. She was awesome. It was great to have her there. And it was like 1,000 degrees on Sunday in our AC unit. I don't think our AC unit's working right now.
It was like really cold in the kids' classroom. It was awesome.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I walked in to pick
And
up
it
my
was
son, and I was like,
literally
"Oh, this is what the world
Hell
should be like."
in the
Dude, it was straight up.
auditorium.
Yeah.
Like the Lord had to speak to my heart, like, live past your flesh.
Yeah. I think, yeah.
'Cause it was hard. It
You
was
almost
very
said,
hard.
I'm out of here.
No, I didn't. No, but it was hot. Sorry.
Yeah, and then I got to drum, which it was about 10 degrees warmer in the drum cage this Sunday because our drummer decided to tell us on Saturday morning that he wasn't able to play. And then we had 2 Pro Presenter people back out, like boom, boom. And so our team just rallied, and it was just one of those crazy Sundays where like, just felt like everything was going wrong. And it was still great. It was awesome. We had a brand new family. So a lady came last week. She loved it and then brought her whole family back this last Sunday, which it was cool to meet the rest of the family. We just have a good crop of new people that are coming through the doors right now. So good things happening, good momentum. So, and thank you, Pastor Marcia, for jumping in because COVID hit our house last week. So Laura had COVID, and so I wasn't sure I was going to be there. So we brought in the big guns.
Honestly, it was so good to be with you guys. And I left and told Kyle, there are so many faces I did not know. So many like young adult age people. And so like I felt like I was walking through the campus like, hi, I'm Marcia. Nice to see you again. Because you know, you don't want to say like nice to meet you because then they're like, you know me. Or because I've been around forever. So, but I felt like there were so many people I did not know. And so just really excited. Like it was great being with you guys on Sunday. Really good.
Lord, thank you so much for these wins and all that we have to celebrate. Thank you for each person that's here and beyond. And we're just excited for this week of ministry to be able to serve you with all our hearts. Amen. Hey, 3-minute bathroom break. And then while the bathroom breaks happen, just come on up front 3 rows if you don't mind. That way we can see your faces. And Marcia, she's teaching. The wings are good. Pastor Tracy and Shelley do not bite. And there's an empty row up here.
everybody. Come on in. I would like to say we're going to get out on time today, but I feel like I should also just give you the heads up that you might be in here a couple minutes past what has been. So I just want to let you know that. Okay. At the end of each year, Kyle and I sit down with our budget and spend a good amount of time like copying this huge Google sheet, right? Yeah, a Google sheet into a new year and then mapping out every last penny. So what we're gonna save, what we're gonna give, how we're gonna spend. We try to look at, this Google sheet might as well be Chinese to me. Like half the time I can't understand half the things that are there, which is probably not great since I do our personal finances. I shouldn't maybe admit that from here. But like there are so many formulas, there's so much stuff that like every year as we look to what our income will be and what our expenses will be, and we've said this before that every year we up 1% of giving, so then that has to affect everything. So then we go through and just try to shuffle things around. And then you look at birthdays and if a kid's gonna start a sport or whatever. So we spend a decent amount of time at the end of the year getting ready for the new year. Now from that, typically I get the general idea and then I put things into Every Dollar. Does anybody else use Dave Ramsey's Every Dollar app? It's like my favorite thing in the whole entire world. Dave Ramsey, I often say, is the other man in my life. I thank him for so many things. He has helped my life be peaceful. So I use Every Dollar for like the actual how it works, because I can't put expenses into a Google form. It does not, I'm sure I can. Those of you who are Google geeks, you're like, that's not true. You could actually use this one document and it would do all the things, but I'm not that smart. So I use the app that Dave Ramsey makes. And then that is how I know that I'm actually living out what I've decided, right? That's how I realize, like I projected to do this and I'm accomplishing it, or I'm hitting it, or I need to pay attention to something. It helps me manage the actuals, and it lets me know what reality is. And some months on the Google sheet, I'll have something that's just for that month. For example, in like February, I have a life insurance policy that's due. So then I have to just remember every February in Every Dollar, I need to put this life policy in there. So sometimes what I actually do and what I've planned to do miss. Sometimes I forget. If I don't go back to my master plan, I can forget what the master plan is as I'm trying to manage 112 million details of my life. And one of the gifts of living in 2022, all of you know this, is that most things can be on auto pay. I don't even have to think about paying bills 99% of the time, because if it can be on auto pay, it is on auto pay. So most things are handled just automatically, unless somebody loses a credit card, and then I have to go in and figure all that out. Not that all that ever happens, but most of my life is happening by default and based on previous decisions. The good thing about that is I don't have to think about things. Most things are handled. We live in a system, so to speak, that keeps me moving. Now, the bad part about that is I can easily forget important things that aren't regular, or when real life happens, like, 2022, we've had some inflation situations that, like, it doesn't really matter what I plan, I'm not going to hit my gas budget. Unless I decide to just walk my children to school. Like, there are just some things I can't say, we're all fasting lunch today, because that's what the budget says. Like, there are just some things we cannot do, right? So the bad part is, like, the truth is life happens at times, and so, it doesn't always line up correctly. Now, finances are, I think, and a budget is an easy illustration for the thing I want to just remind us of here mid-year, which is living on purpose and just keeping us focused on where we're headed. So every now and then we need to realign and we need to refocus on what we've previously decided, because don't you know that time causes drift? We often say this, but like in life and in church and in work and in family, it is not uncommon to have mission drift. It is not uncommon to have vision drift. Because you can say something once, but then you forget about it. How many times have you and your spouse said, we're going to do XYZ, and then 3 weeks later you realize we haven't done XYZ? This summer, Kyle and I went into the summer being like, we are going to take walks at night. Won't that be great? Our dog will finally get walked. And we will leave our children home alone, and we can have like 20 minutes to 40 minutes at night, and we'll just connect and talk. It'll be amazing. Like, we said that in May. We have not had one walk. In fact, Kyle a couple times has been like, hey, you want to go on a walk? And I'm like, no, I don't. Because I just don't feel like it. It's hot outside, or I'm tired. You know, like, the truth is there are times that you can say you're going to do something, real life hits, you look back and you're like, oh, I know we said we were going to do that, but we just never actually got around to it. We are halfway through the year. So in some ways, we are running, right? You feel like 2022, you've just been running. And in some ways, some things are on autopilot. We don't even think about it. We're just in the rhythm of, this is just, I don't even have to think about this part of my ministry, this part of my work, this part of my family, this part of my life. I'm just on autopilot. It happens naturally. And in some ways, I think we're making things happen creatively because they're not working the way we wish they'd work, right? So we're trying to get creative because we're like, oh, it's almost August and I still haven't figured out how to actually get people to join this team. Or it's almost August and I thought it was going to look like this, and now I don't know how to do it. So I have to start getting creative because I don't want to look back at the end of the year and say, that didn't happen on any level for us, right? And so I just think July, here we are mid-year, is a good time for a healthy reminder. And I want to remind us of what our organizational vision is. It's just a thrilling topic today, isn't it? Isn't this what you just dream of going to Leadership Chapel and talking about? Your organizational vision. But here it is. This is not the mission of our church. We know what we're here for. We're here to make disciples who make disciples. That's what we're going to do every day, all day. Everything is going to be about making disciples who make disciples. But how do we who are on the team do it? Because that's sometimes where nuances hit, right? So how do we do this? Sorry, I'm sharing it didn't let me share the password. How do we do this? What's our organizational vision? This is how we do it. We are responsible to build one church through building each campus or ministry and supporting our peers in doing the same. I'm going to read it one more time. This might be the first time you're ever hearing this because maybe you're new to the team, maybe you're in a ministry or in a department or at maybe what you put your hand to, like this is not the thing that you talk about, right? So you don't know this. So I love that we get to talk about it today, even though it doesn't seem exciting. It's so exciting. This is the best. Okay, we are responsible to build one church through building each campus or ministry and through supporting our peers in doing the same. So the vision and overall health of one church is the priority and responsibility of each staff member. We're responsible to build one church. I'm responsible to build one church. You're responsible to build one church. Every greeter, every kids worker, every media team member, every worship team member, like all of us, we put our hand to the plow, so to speak. Like it is our mission to build one church. We do that through a specific ministry or campus. Now, I want to pause for just a second and say, here's, I think, where we've got off mission drift. We've had mission drift a bit. We've gotten off track a little bit. When I was let me say it this way. I've been interim Turlock campus pastors. By the way, I've never been so excited for campus pastors to have joined the team as I am right now. And I've loved being in Turlock. Honestly, Danielle Lopez has saved our bacon 1,012 times, and that lead team is amazing. So I've been campus pastor at the Turlock campus. And, I have this chunk of time where Pastors Brad and Mandy did a great job. They brought what was formerly not a one-church church into one church, created some culture, aligned that whole campus. I mean, they did so much work that whoever comes in next really gets to, not have to start from -12. Not that what was there wasn't good, it just wasn't one church. It just was a different church. So I'm really excited, but Kyle and I go in and we're like, boy, wouldn't it be great if we could help so that whoever comes in next, we're like 3 steps further down the road. Wouldn't it be great if we could build some teams so that whoever comes in next, like things are better and healthier and whatever. Now it's been a long time. Well, first of all, I've never been a campus pastor of any campus but this one. So that alone is different. And it's been a long time since I've been a campus pastor. And I just want to say, there were plenty of times that I would look at a situation and a decision and I would think to myself, it would be really nice if I could just do this thing. I don't know what this thing is. It'd be really nice if I could just paint the walls pink. I'm making up a lie. Because that would take us further faster. And it would just be like, boy, that would really answer some situational needs here. But you know what? We've already decided as one church, we're going to keep the walls blue. Actually, I say that and I get a little bit of panic because we actually had blue walls one time that were really bad. But, and so I have to wrestle with the fact, the reality, that what feels like would be really good for my campus is different than what we've decided as one church. And I probably got off track with my illustration, but here's where I'm saying, I feel like we've gotten a little off track in certain ministries, department, team members, situations where we are forgetting that what is best for one church, even if it's not best for you, becomes best for us. What is best for the Bethke family, even if Jackson would rather have taquitos one night, if what's best for the Bethke family is that we eat a chicken salad, that means it's best for Jackson Bethke, even though Jackson Bethke would rather have taquitos 8 nights a week, and we only have 7 nights, right? So what's best for the whole is best for the whole. Now we have to take into consideration that there are 7 of us, and campuses are at different situations, and ministries are at different seasons, and most of us are all volunteer, and some of us don't even have a lead for a certain place. We have to take in consideration what the family needs, but at the end of the day, our vision is we build one church. Now, I'm going to do that when I put my hand to a ministry or to a department. And then we are responsible to support our peers in doing the same. So, let me get into some practical things here. Maybe, okay. I have been challenged lately. I got really off track with my illustration there. Sorry, guys. Let me get back to my notes. I've been challenged lately. I think convicted is too strong, but I've been challenged lately about when I talk about one church in our way. You've heard me say this many times. We have said this many times. That I have often said, I'll just own it for myself. I have often said, and you could probably say it with me once you realize where I'm headed. I think we do this the best way, but we also do this the hardest way, right? I believe that. I think the way that the Lord has led us to do this family thing, I think this is the best way, and I do recognize it's difficult, but here's the truth of the matter. I think if we were in a different model, I would feel the same. I think if we were, let's just say we took another multi-site model and decided this is what God has for us. I think you get me 12 months into that, and I would say, I think we're doing this the best way, but I think this is the most difficult way. Why? Well, because anything I have to fully own and align with and be on the team with in any area of my life, that's going to be difficult. I often used to say from the pulpit, I'm not in the pulpit as much, but I often used to say from the pulpit that marriage is the hardest thing in my life that I do. It's true. The way that it sounds when people hear it is, Kyle is really difficult to be married to, right? Like if I just stood here and said marriage is the hardest thing for me to do, wouldn't you kind of feel like, ooh, Kyle's difficult. Kyle is difficult. That's true. That is true. But I wouldn't have chosen any other difficult. The truth is, you substitute Kyle for any other man, and that man is difficult. Marriage is not difficult because of who I'm married to. Marriage is difficult because I'm selfish, because I don't like to sacrifice, because godliness is difficult, because submission is difficult, because forgiveness is difficult, because preference is difficult. It's not my spouse who makes it difficult. It's that God is constantly shaping me to be more like him and less like me. So, I have stopped saying marriage is the most difficult thing I do from the pulpit that way. Although Kyle, like last 2 times, Kyle has said, Marcia says marriage is the most difficult thing she does. And I don't disagree with him. It is hard. And it's not because of him. It's because I am much more difficult and I need to look a lot more like Jesus than I do, quite honestly. And the older I get and the longer I'm in marriage, honestly, the more difficult it becomes for me. The older I get and the longer I'm in ministry, the more difficult it is for me to not want things my way and to do things my way. I just think that's part of what comes with, in a good way, maturity and experience. You know, how many times when you were 19 and fresh did you think those old people do not right? And now that you're however old you are, you look back and you're like, those sweet 19-year-olds, their brains aren't even fully functioned. They don't know what they're talking about. Am I right? Okay, but here's the truth of the matter. Like, at 19, I was much more flexible, agile, and willing than I am now. So I just have to assume that always the issue is with me. So, I want to change the way that I talk about One Church and our organizational mission because I think it's awesome. And I think that this is what God has called us to do and to be. And I've never been critical about it, I don't think I've been critical about it. But I do think that my words have the power of life and death. And if I say out loud to myself and to us, this is the most difficult way. Don't you know when I'm facing a difficult thing about One Church, in the back of the first thing that my mind tells my flesh is, well, I'm choosing the most difficult way to do this. Why do we have to do it this way? We shouldn't have to do it this way. This is the most complicated way. So I'm telling you today, I am committing to change the way I talk about it, and I'm challenging you to join me. Not that I think all of you say the same things that I've said in the past, but I think maybe I have said it enough that you have adopted it. So allow me to ask for forgiveness. I almost said, allow me to forgive myself. Allow me to ask for forgiveness and invite you to join me. Okay, so I want to get super practical for just a minute about our church. We have one vision, one mission, one set of team culture values, and one set of beliefs. That is going to be lived out with the personality and giftings of campus pastors in 7 different locations. That is going to be lived out with the personality and giftings of lead team members in 7 different locations. And it's going to be lived out with the needs, the practical needs of a community that are unique and different than at some other location. And so, if we're not careful and we don't continue to decide to be one, we will become 7. And we don't want to do that. And so, how do we protect against 2 visions, or 8 visions, or 15 visions, or however many? Just a couple practical things. Number 1, know and honor what is One Church. Our culture, where we're aligned, and equally where we're autonomous. Now, it is and Kyle, and I'll add Jordan to the mix as the executive administrator, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it is mine and Kyle's responsibility to make that very clear and accessible. If you don't know where we're aligned and where we're autonomous and what our mission is and what we believe, ultimately, that's our responsibility, okay? So it's our job to make it accessible and clear. It is your job to find it and learn it and live it. Some of you have not fully come to fall in love with base camp yet. I'm believing you're going to get there. I am believing you're going to get there. But let me just say, the beautiful thing about base camp is anything you ever need to find can be found there. And if you're ever wondering what the mission of your seat as a connections director is, you can find it on base camp. You might have to search, you might have to ping somebody, but the truth is, we're gonna make it super clear. You're responsible to learn how to fish and find it. So, practically speaking, regularly revisit whatever your template is. I talked about a Google sheet of my budget and then, every dollar. So when it comes to your ministry, regularly revisit whatever that template is. Figure out, remind yourself, regularly go back to your assimilation process or a field document for service or meeting notes or get on base camp and remind yourself of team culture values. Like, go back. I have to go back every once in a while and look at this master plan so I'm kept on track. Utilize systems when you can. Calendars, to-dos, planning center, meeting notes, base camp. So, number one, know and honor what is one church. The culture, where we're aligned, and equally where we're autonomous. Number two, I only have 3 things. Number two, ask when you aren't sure or when you sense something may be uniquely yours. When you're not sure about something, please ask. Every once in a while, I will be sitting in a meeting or I'll be sitting overhearing something and I'll hear a department or a leader or somebody say, oh yeah, God's given this word for this year, or I really sense this thing. And every once in a while, I think to myself, oh, I think maybe that should be something that we talk about. If Kyle and I, as interim Turlock campus pastors, no longer Turlock campus pastors, okay, just praise the Lord for that one more time, because I'm so excited to have you guys on the team. If we had just decided, hey, Turlock is gonna be all about whatever, and it wasn't what the other campus pastors had already decided this is what we're going to do this year, that would be out of alignment. So while you're responsible to lead a team and lead a department or lead a campus or lead a ministry or lead a whatever, like if you sense God stirring something in you, you have to make sure that you're communicating to make sure we're in alignment still. If you decide you're going to focus on X, Y, Z, make sure you should focus on X, Y, Z, and it's not taking you off in left field. Sometimes it's not wrong or bad or out of alignment, but it might lead to some confusion. It might just lead to some confusion. And we're already unique enough, right? We're dynamic enough that we don't want more confusion. So, if you're a worship leader, your idea of worship might be a shofar, tambourines, and flags. Can I tell you, I don't think that's unbiblical. Do I think if you worship Jesus with a shofar, tambourines, and flags, that the Lord is lifted high? 100%. Is that one church? I'm not so sure. So instead of you just deciding as the new worship leader, this is what we're doing because this is what God has spoken to me, and I see it happen in Scripture, I would say you should really run that decision through Pastor Aaron and the team, right? Now, we giggle because that's not who we are. We all know it. Like, if all of a sudden your campus only used shofars, tambourines, and flags, you'd be like, this is not what I'm used to. But none of us could say it's unbiblical, it doesn't honor Jesus, and that you don't feel led to lead that way. But it might not be the one church way. So, I used what I thought was a fairly expressive or clear illustration. It doesn't always look like that, but sometimes we get down the road of ministry and we're like, interesting. Yeah, okay, what you're choosing to do is not unbiblical. It does honor the Lord, but maybe that's not who we've decided to be as one church. So, we don't want to cause more confusion. Don't get off mission. Okay, and number 3 is this. We will adjust when change is necessary. We will. If you've been around a long time, you know we have changed lots of times, and we will continue to change. As we get older, Kyle and I had this conversation while we were in Texas between the two of us about us. Like, boy, sometimes I hear myself saying, but we already decided that. We've already made that decision. But this works. Like, I hear myself saying things that back in the day, I remember thinking, like, just because you've always done something some way doesn't mean it needs to be done that way anymore, right? Like if I came to you and said something that you really believed in, you'd be like, oh, gosh. But here's the truth. We are committed to changing when we need to change. We are committed to changing when we need to change. And just like I can't decide in my family all by myself that I'm going to change our family budget mid-year just because it needs to be changed without communicating, like I have another adult in the household that is responsible, so I will go to him and say, in fact, this summer, I went to him and said, hey, we need to rally and have some conversations about certain parts of our budget because 2022 hit and what we said was going to happen hasn't happened. So, like, we got to replan. And so I would say to us, there are going to be things that happen. COVID is going to hit. You're going to lose team members. You're going to double. Things are going to happen, and you're going to go, this doesn't work anymore. We have to change. So let's have some conversations. We are committed to change when it's necessary. And in all of this, we are always adding new team members to the family, and we will always be onboarding new people. And so this is something we have to be really clear on. I'm realizing in my new seat, it's not all that new, but I'm realizing in my seat now as the Assimilation Connection Director or Champion and Marcom Champion, that there are things that Kyle and I and Jordan are super clear on. There are things that the campus pastors and we very clear on. Then I meet with that team and I'm like, oh, you've never heard of this. Okay. Because I've always been part of a campus who had full-time team members. So I'm realizing in a different way how much, like, if we who somehow are around the most, because if you're here in this room, you're around the most, if we don't pass this down to our teams, it doesn't matter that you come around a table on a Tuesday and it's really clear. What happens 30 miles down the road, I guess no campuses are 30 miles down the road. What happens however far Manteca and Turlock are from down the road, there is mission. It might as well be countries apart of mission drift. So, yeah, okay. Kyle, you want to come up and add anything? I typically would, no, that's really the end before I pray and whatever, but.
I had two things. And you're thinking no questions and answer today?
I'm just trying to honor.
Okay.
Maybe we should give campus pastors an opportunity to give some feedback? Okay, campus pastors will give you an opportunity if you've got questions, comments, thoughts, but because it's such a big topic, I don't want to not give you.
You said that after point two, you were talking about ask when we aren't sure, but you talked about when we don't bring it up, there can be confusion that seeds into things. And I just heard the word collaboration too. So like, I think that where we go back to both alignment and autonomy, there's a lot of creativity in this room. And this summer, I've been really starting to pay attention to, and this season in general, like you talked about being in this interim role in Turlock, I've started to pay attention to the reality that like the way I used to do things may not be the way that I would do things if I could wipe the slate clean and start all over. Or just the way that we should do things. So like there's really just this openness to change and to shoot the sacred cows and all that other stuff. But the honest truth is sometimes we don't discover things unless we really rub shoulders with other people. And so I think also when there's a great idea, like the last great idea that I can think of, there's so many, but I mean I could think of like this blue folder thing that Ripon piloted and then pioneered. Like we're benefiting from that at every campus now, and the reason we are is because that wasn't kept a secret. It on some level came out, and I like that when we have great ideas and thoughts that we share those, both as a point of I don't want confusion and I want godly collaboration, so mutual edification. So that's one thing, and then we have this ability, and I try to say this as uncontroversial as possible. At my last church, we were at a church, and Dave and Kim were at that same church. Anyway, oh yeah, there's a lot of us. Anyway, that pastor who planted the church is still there, and there have been a long list of associate type people like me who have come and gone since he started the church. And it makes me take a step back for a second and realize that, A, he won't be there forever. And that's one of my points, is I am trying to remember that I won't be in my spot forever. But the interesting thing is it was real easy for me when I was there to think, I probably or might be here longer than him. And I think what I'm getting at is we typically act like we're going to be in our role forever. And that's a good trait in many ways. But the thing we got to remember is we are setting whatever we're doing up for somebody else, whoever we are. And so, like, the odds are, and again, this is where I'm not trying to be controversial, the odds are that we may be here longer than all of you. This thing, on some level, and in this new season, kind of, again, there have been 9, 10 people before us as lead pastors here. And so I want to remember, I'm just one in a long line. But at the same time, you know, this new way we've done it, multi-site and all that other stuff, kind of started from this heart of ours, but also just saying yes to the passions of other people. Forgive me because I'm talking, but I'm being careful. This is just my heart. I like to be safe and cautious because I care about you and I care about honoring him. But there's a good chance that some of you will move on before we do, and some of your team will move on before you do. It's just the nature of how sometimes organizational leadership works. And that's proven that we've had our first campus pastor transition with Brad and Mandy leaving and new folks coming. And there will be more. And it really is this posture change that I'm not just suggesting for you, I'm suggesting it for us and everybody, that we just remember that we're not going to be in our role forever and we're trying to set it up for somebody else. And then secondly, when it is time for us to move on, like somebody comes in and fills in, either replacing or for a season fills in, like in our case, Turlock is very clear in front of me right now. As great a season as the Winkles led throughout, when we came in, there were things that we had to come alongside of and bring clarity, bring vision, correct, help. There were many one church things that had to be either cast that might have been cast before. You understand, I'm being very careful right now. I love all the people involved. And then it's with an eye to realize that we're just building a world that somebody else gets to sit in. So it's almost like we're kind of fixing and bringing clarity to some things in many ways, but then we're also remembering that it's not our world that we're going to be living in. So it's this nonstop, just on some level, you know, preference deference. I love the word stewards, not owners, because I think it implies stewards is really all the positive traits of owner, but with this additional positive traits that it's not ours, and we're really maintaining it, managing it for somebody else. And I use that, and I'll throw it back to you to host whatever, but I just think this is a very powerful principle for all of us to remember as we're trying to live out our organizational vision. And that is that we're trying to do it in such a way that, God forbid, if anything happened to us, somebody else could step in with as little amount of energy, work, or whatever, and continue on what God is doing, not what we do, but what God is doing, but within this context, within this family, without as many hiccups as possible. And then, while we're doing that, we're trying to still be so attentive to what the voice of the Spirit would say, to create and infuse and do all this amazing stuff that is beyond where we're at today, but maybe where the Lord is taking us in the future. It's just this really powerful world that the best and only way to really get all that right is just to do it together as like one big family, to manage our relationship one with another and allow there to be plenty of grace, because there's going to be friction without it being, you say difficult, I say dynamic. That's the word that we use around here because it's easier to say than difficult. We're dynamic, and anything dynamic, there's going to be friction. So anyway.
Campus pastors, thoughts, comments?
You don't have to have any, but we just wanted, with such a word, it's important to give you guys a chance to say something.
Yeah.
Ask a question. You're not, I'm sorry. I'll give you a chance if they don't want to say something.
And I'm still newer to this seat than most campus pastors, but I think this is a tension that we're always going to be living in, because to lead in this dynamic setting, you have to have a lot of vision, you have to have a lot of passion. In a way, you have to not want to be in a box. And then, so it's just a tension that I think we just have to acknowledge. And you say this a lot. We'll know when we've bumped into culture, when we bump into it. And then we have to be willing to be corrected. So it's all very refining.
It was really freeing to me. I didn't mean to cut you off if I did. It was really freeing to me when I first heard that language. Some things are tensions to be managed, not problems to be fixed. Because when you feel a tension, especially my temperament, I want to fix the problem. I don't ever want to be there again. But the truth is some things are just tensions we will always manage. And so that's such a great reminder that the world that we live in you're just going to be managing some tensions. And we want to do that healthily, and we want to do that where it honors everybody involved.
We want to do that with communication. I mean, that's the big thing. That was the second point.
I was just going to ask real quick, could you guys, because I know when we first came in, you guys talked about having a vision that's big enough to have vision underneath it. Can you speak into how does that dynamic play out with all of this?
I mean, the illustration is the movie Inception, a dream within a dream within a dream. And I'm careful with this illustration because I don't think any one of us has the biggest dream. Like in this case, the illustration, it was Rob Ketterling that shared this at a CMN thing, and I was like, that makes sense. But he talked about that his dream has to grow and enlarge and be big enough in order that it can include the dreams of others. And the second that his dream remains too narrow to whatever, that's when great people, like this room is full of them, decide to take their dream. And again, this is still submitted to the Lord and underneath his inspiration, all that, and move it someplace else. And it just really clicked with me that I don't want one church to be a place, quite frankly, that only one or two talent leaders want to be a part of the vision here. We really want to see the best of the best be able to fit in this space. And that just means that starting with Marcia and I, we've got to create a vision that has room for great leaders to be included in that. And then it cascades on some level from that. You have to create vision that there's room for people. And again, the way you do that isn't that you just say everything goes, as much as it's just there's a healthy communication and process. And we're always open-minded. We're willing to change. So that's where it comes from. The illustration on some level will break down, and I don't like it on some level because it feels kind of hierarchical. So I don't love, that's why I didn't even say cascades downward a second ago when I said cascades. Because although cascading probably would imply. But it's a wider thing, right? Anyway, sorry, brain. But I just think that on some level, or after the Venn diagram that really explores that we're this family going about this thing together, and we've got to figure out a way that there's space one for another. And the other reason why I really liked that is because I was told 3, 4, 5 years ago, we were told by great multi-site leaders that some of you would know their name, that there's one vision. Again, in our situation, the organizational vision, there is one organizational vision. This is something that's about how we do this, right? But to say that there's one vision in 7 different congregations, 6 different cities, sounds very difficult for me. And I think most of you would agree. From 7 different leadership personality or core or team or whatever. And so that's why I really feel like I didn't like this person saying that there should be one vision and I was like, maybe for your multi-site environment, but I don't know that I like that. Now, the hard part is, what is 2 visions? What word is that? division. I mean, it's basically vision divided in two. That's where we got to be careful. So how do we have 7 visions, if you will, and still remain one and together and whole? Well, Lord help us. That's really, I don't know the answer to that. It's always a tension to manage. But what I am trying to say is what I did not like about that one person saying there should be one vision and everybody, whatever, is where I kind of came back, and when I heard this, dream within a dream within a dream, I all of a sudden realized that is an example of how there can be space for different vision and a vision for a community and all this other stuff. But that just means that the higher up it goes, again, I hate the hierarchical side, but the higher up it goes, there needs to be some things that are clear, and there need to be some things that are like right now I'm trying to figure out how do I have less and less things and more specific things and not a bunch of things that we're all having to manage. Does that make sense? The higher it goes, the more there needs to be space, and there can't be a list of 100 rules. There needs to be, like, let's say 5. Yeah, I'm just, does that make sense? That's my prayerful point right now. Because ultimately, once we start having, multiplying many of you campus pastors, whatever, it's just going to be discovered that I'm going to quit now.
I was just going to say, practically speaking, the question, the first 5 years of this, we were asking, how do we need to align so that everybody can be better and the floor can be raised? I think the last handful of years, especially the last 3 years, we've asked, where do we need to, where there's going to be creativity and a lot of freedom. And so I think that in our model, those 2 words, I would say that's where there's got to be space for what you're asking about, and those are things that we're continuing and how that looks. So I don't need to talk anymore, but I just think we need to continue to be right in the places of autonomy and alignment, because I am more impressed when I go places, other campuses, and I see what they're doing, and I'm like, oh, that's really good. I would never have thought about that. And so have space that people can lead in, not have to live in somebody else's armor, but still know a playbook, so to speak.
Can you guys expand a little bit more on what does it look like practically when the mission's to build one church? How does that play out when maybe a decision builds one church, Riverbank campus, like this is going to build that church, that location? What does that look like to practically walk that through if that doesn't build the network? Or how do you weigh those scales when, like, this is going to build this church, it's going to grow, so as a whole it grows? Does my question make sense? Can you guys just give me an example of what that looks like?
I'm going to give you a silly example, but it's an act. I think this is, first of all, those things most often are answered around a campus pastor table. So those things are not answered in a room, just the 2 of us. So that's important that...
Can I, for your example,
Yeah.
You want to finish your sentence? But I was just going to say that where it came from, this organizational vision came from, is we were sitting around the table every other week trying to find a win-win. A win for Ripon and a win for Riverbank. I actually think it was probably on that pivot point, like Riverbank, St. John's, and Modesto. This goes way back. I think it was in that season, even before Ripon. But we were sitting there trying to decide a win-win. And we realized that some things were a win level 8 for this campus, but were like a win level 2 for this campus. Actually, the situation that really challenged us was driving, and we're still there. So it was a situation that was like, we are a little bit geographically further out, and so this event is a win level 2 for us and our people. And another campus said, well, this is a win level 8 because our people are accustomed to driving and it's not a big deal. That was the situation. Now you're all smiling because, are we still talking about this? And we always will be the further out we geographically spread. But the point is, that's where this came from. It was in this moment where we realized we were chasing our tail so much, trying to find a win-win for everybody. And though we would never want a win-win lose, if there were 3 campuses, a win, 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 lose, lose, lose. Well, we would never probably go for that. What we really often have to say yes to is a win, 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 like at a level 8, 6, 7, whatever, and then a win, win at 2, like that. And for whatever reason, that comes to my mind to answer the question is to say this is where it came from. Practically speaking, we just had to realize that the goal, if we made 7 goals of pleasing, appeasing, or whatever, we would be chasing our tail forever. So your example.
An all-church worship night. If we had, we have 7 campuses. Let's just say one campus says, let's just say hypothetically there's a campus that's traditional in our model, hypothetically. Let's hypothetically say they don't like to drive at night. Let's hypothetically say they would not prefer the worship style.
Or volume.
With the lights and the smoke. Hypothetically say that is part of our situation. And then we should gather to worship together twice a year. That campus might say, calendar. My people don't care to come. Nobody's going to come. I'm going to be announcing things that then I'm going to be hearing about it when they come, or I'm going to have to be putting out fire. But if it's good for the whole, it doesn't mean that we then decide this is a win for one church, and it is okay if 3 people from a certain traditional campus decide to participate because they love our church. It's just this. Is there a bag of tea or cup of tea? But it is a bag too, right?
Bag of what?
Once it's a bag of weed. It's not a bag of weed. So that to me,
probably.
But the truth is, as every campus and every campus pastor is managing busy schedules, congregations that matter, those kinds of things multiplied by 1,000 that's when the tension comes in. If it was just a worship night, if that was the only thing, we can manage it. But when it's a worship night up against, I've scheduled my kids' party the night. I have 50 kids that are going to come to the kids' party, but only 3 kids that are coming to the kids' camp. So then what's the priority? The kids' camp we all do because this is the one time a year, or the party? There are just weird things like that. So you'll hear all about them as you sit around the table, and then you'll get to wrestle through the tensions. But that is an illustration of maybe not a win on the same level, but it.
And we're about to rethink through it all because we're headed into a calendar planning season for next year, and so everything on some level comes back to being evaluated. Anything else, campus pastors? I'm going to give Pastor Marlo a shot. Last thing, then we'll pray.
I sent this to Pastor Christina about a week ago, and I told her I felt like this was for myself, that the Lord laid on my heart, but I actually think that it was for our church. But I didn't even think about one church as a whole. But I think this kind of goes in line with what you're saying. Philippians 2, verses 1-4 says this: "Therefore, if there is any consolation in Christ, if any comfort of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any affection and mercy, fulfill my joy by being like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord, of one mind. Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind. Let each esteem each other's better than himself. Let each of you look not only for his own interests, but also for the interests of others." And I got convicted because I was thinking about my other ministries in my own campus, but now I'm thinking about, as a youth champion, the other youth campuses at different. How can I, one, help keep us in alignment, but also support and other campuses' youth ministries and support those people and champion them, on top of making sure that the best way I can champion them is to make sure that we are of one mind with one church. And unity, we all know this, unity is not uniformity. Unity is the heart thing.